Now I'll be the first person to admit that I'm not plugged into the world of Sanrio characters. If you showed me a picture of Cinnamoroll, I would have no idea who they were. Apparently she's currently the most popular character they have. But in 1990, according to fan surveys at the time, the most popular Sanrio character was Kero Kero Keroppi. Yes, even beating out Hello Kitty. He was the big new character introduced in the late 80s, and Sanrio actually chose to make him by having a public contest where people voted on which frog character they liked the best. So even though it's 1991, and this is the first time we've seen him, there's actually 3 Kero Kero Keroppi games on the Famicom. And that isn't counting the Sanrio games where he's part of a whole crew. The story of Kero Kero Keroppi no Daibouken is that Kero Kero Keroppi's girlfriend Caroline has been abducted. And that doesn't really matter at all. Because what the game's actually about is a series of find-a-path mini-games. A sometimes simple, sometimes not so simple set of puzzles, where your goal on every stage is to collect the candy and get Kero Kero Keroppi to the exit arrow. There are 7 worlds, and the worlds can have between 4 and 8 stages, so really it's about 50 stages of puzzles. You can choose to do the stages in the world in any order that you like, and the fruit tells you what kind of puzzle you're going to be doing. The controls are common to every stage. Hitting A will make Kero Kero Keroppi leap over the tile in front of him and land on the next tile, while hitting B means you're giving up. On some stages where you can collect a cloud, hitting B will do something to fix the puzzle a bit and give you another chance, but otherwise a hot air balloon takes you back to the world map and you're asked if you want to continue. There are no lives here. You can just keep going until you want to give up. All of the stages are timed, and those are the ice cream cones. Collecting another cone will extend that timer. Complete all the stages on the world, and you get a password, and that'll let you pick up there. So what are the stages? Apple is the easiest of them, a very basic maze. The catch is that some of the parts of the maze are underground, and so you can't see them as you're moving through. But in that case, you just bonk on the walls until you find the path. Apple stages also sometimes have conveyor belts, which will flip direction when you hit a switch, and bridges, which just complicate your path a little bit. Grape stages are the next easiest. They show you a path across the pond that disappears before you start moving. On earlier worlds, you've got plenty of landmarks to help you remember the path, but on later ones, you just have to memorize it. The remaining 2 styles of stages can actually be a bit challenging. Lemon stages have you play Othello. Basically, when Kero Kero Keroppi lands on a spot, he flips that tile between green and orange. And if tiles wind up being surrounded, then they also flip. What makes this hard is that Kero Kero Keroppi can only move from green tiles to green tiles, and from orange tiles to orange tiles. So it's very easy to accidentally lock yourself into a place. The tiles with stars on them will flip over every tile in their row and column. On the Durian stages, every time Kero Kero Keroppi lands on one of the purple tiles, it rotates the exits 90 degrees. You can leap over a tile that you can't enter, but you do have to land on a tile that you could. In later worlds in particular, these stages can be real brain burners as you try to manipulate the paths to get to the exit. If you collect a heart on one of these stages, you unlock a bonus stage, and if you do that, you really should do the bonus stage immediately, because when you complete the world, you just leave. On the bonus stages, you have to pick which one of 4 paths will lead to the goal. As it progresses, the paths become more complicated, and you have less time to choose. The only thing at stake on these bonus stages, though, are points. And they really aren't that tricky, so it's a thing that I did once and went, you know, I don't really need to do this again. I get the impression that Kero Kero Keroppi no Daibouken isn't well known in Japan, mainly because it is such a late Famicom release. There just aren't that many people talking about it. But everybody who does talk about the game loves it. Though I also saw a lot of, how did I beat this when I was in elementary school? And yeah, those later lemon and durian puzzles are really hard. Not the hardest puzzles I've ever encountered in a video game, but definitely harder than you'd expect for a game whose target audience was between 4 and 7 years old. And that's kind of why I talk up these Charactersoft games. None of their titles are cheap cash-ins. And while they streamline the games to make them easier for their younger audience, they also don't make them trivial. In fact, it reminds me a lot of modern game design. They were trying to make these games as approachable as possible. I wouldn't put Kero Kero Keroppi no Daibouken in the upper half of the Charactersoft games. For example, the grape levels just aren't really that good. But maybe you would consider them breaks from the actually interesting puzzles. But overall, this is a really entertaining little game, and one that gets unfairly overlooked.